Recently, I mixed a worship song by Braden Rhodes. It was super fun. I've never mixed a worship song before, but worship songs have really good mixes, so I had to step up to the plate and see what I could do. And really, when you think about it, it's just kind of like more ballady, slower pop music. But anyway, this session is pretty big, so I want to dive into the mix and show you how I did it. And if you want to work with me, you can click the Work with Matchler link in the description. We can check out your project, maybe work on something. So this song is called Right Here by Braden Rhodes featuring 𝗕𝗕𝗠𝗕𝗘𝗥, and I'll just play a little section for you. It's out, you can go listen to it, so feel free to go listen.
Now I see clear, you have always been right here. If you were Jesus, when he died for my freedom and opened the kingdom, why wouldn't you be right here?
So yeah, funnily enough, when I was mixing this song, I slowly but surely learned a bit about religion, which I thought was pretty funny. Didn't know anything before we jumped in, and now I consider myself a scholar. So I want to dive into these sections separately, so then you can get kind of every little bit of how I mixed these independent tracks. I feel like that's the most useful. Then we'll dive into the mastering, but first we have to talk about the synths, because I'm sending to a lot of things. So as you can see here, we got a lot of synths. We have a Room, which is using the Magic 7. It's a 𝗕𝗘𝗖𝗢𝗠𝗘 emulation. I believe a lot of these are the 𝗕𝗘𝗖 stuff. Yeah, we got the 𝗕𝗘𝗖 plate. We got the 𝗕𝗘𝗖 chamber. We got the 𝗕𝗘𝗖 nonlinear. This is typically what I send drums to. We got a 𝗕𝗘𝗖 hall, and we got a 𝗕𝗘𝗖 long. Some of these have some EQ just to even out the harshness or clean up some boominess. And then we have 4 delays. We got a slap delay with Echo Boy. We got a tape delay. We have a digital delay. And we have a throw delay. Throw delay. So I'm not going to dive into how much I've been sending, but you can see all these synths here. So this means I'm sending -12.8 to the plate. Cool. All right, let's get started. All right, let's talk about the lead vocal. There's a couple of different lead vocal tracks, but this is the first lead vocal for the verse. This is what it sounds like, completely dry.
I feel it, something's changing, so amazing, I hear it.
So obviously we start to enable our sends, and it gets a little more spacey.
I feel it, something's changing, so amazing.
Obviously a lot of space, a lot of delay, a lot of reverb. Next we start with some auto-tune, and then to get rid of like a couple blips and stuff here, I just put on a gate.
I feel it.
Gets rid of some breaths. Next it was sharp, so I put a de-esser on.
Something's changing, so amazing, I hear it.
Then an EQ. EQ is going to clean up around 350-ish. This is kind of like a choking frequency. Let's listen to it. Yeah, not a fan of that frequency, so we attenuate it. I then throw on some Klanghelm saturation. I don't use this plugin too much, but it's pretty good. Then I use CQ to boost the mids and the highs. CQ is really nice because it adds some nice saturation. After that, I needed some compression, so I used RVox. RVox compression is always great.
Something's changing, so amazing, I hear it.
And you can hear when I take the CQ off, the S's don't really shine through. There's not really much high end.
Something's changing.
So when I engage it,
something's changing.
Just pokes through a little bit more. Next we got the 𝗕𝗘𝗠𝗕𝗠𝗕 for some color.
Something's changing, so amazing, I hear it.
Lastly, one more de-esser because we started to add a lot of high end, and then 1176 just for a little bit more compression. And by a little compression, I mean a ton of compression because we're hitting like -20. That's really just to bring the vocal up front. I wanted it right there in the forefront because there's going to be a lot of instrumentation and stuff happening around. I don't want the vocal to get lost. Cool. That's the general processing for the lead vocal. There's a couple more. Here is Ivan's track. Same sort of thing. We got auto-tune. We got a bit of Pro Q cut in the same kind of region, 350-ish. Then a little boost at 1800. Add some saturation. Add my high end with my CQ. Don't really use this plugin. Not sure why it's there. Then I got RVox Pro C, a bit of a cleaner compressor, and a bit more color from 𝗕𝗘𝗠𝗕𝗠𝗕. That sounds like this.
You're in it, in the quiet, total silence, you're in it. The rocks cry out, the fields they bow, 'cause you're in it.
Now, these different vocal parts did need a bit of different processing, even if they were the same vocal. So, for example, this is Braden again.
You're right here.
But the audio file or the audio track that he sent over was slightly different, so it needed a bit of different processing. So if you're wondering why there's two different of the same lead vocals on two different tracks, That's why. So quickly, we'll just go into this. We have a bit of Pro G for the gate, some auto-tune, some soothe. Soothe mainly just for the high end. Let's actually solo this and we'll delta it and see what we're removing here. Yeah, so just that strange kind of resonance around it. Well, whatever that is, probably about 5 to 9K. Then we have that compressor again, super heavy compressor. Then we have the Pro Q doing the same EQ curves. And then we got the same thing, DCA, the CQ, the Vitalizer I'm actually using on this track. Vitalizer is pretty cool. Adds nice high end and like kind of polish to tracks, but sometimes it's a little too much. But let's turn it off and see what it sounds like with it.
You're right here.
And then with it,
you're right here.
so just a tiny bit of polish. Then we got our RVox, our de-esser, our fresh air because we wanted more air, and soothe focusing on even more highs. So we're kind of doubling up on high end, doubling up on treating high end. Almost sounds redundant, but I guess it was a reason to do multiple stages of treating high end and adding high end. I feel like it keeps it a little more natural if you do it in multiple stages as opposed to just trying to really get rid of it and then really add it back. So this track will continue to be the lead vocal for the rest of the song from here on out. So we won't focus on any more lead vocals here, but we will focus on the harmonies. This is what the harmonies sound like.
Right here. Right here.
So obviously a little bit more tuned. Auto-tune is probably around 20. Oh, it's only 40. Okay. Then we got Pro Q on here doing the same EQ curve. We have the same compression, same saturation, same CQ. We have Vitalizer on this time. Then we have a little bit of RVox for some compression, even more compression with C2, and then some de-essing and some shimmer. I like to throw shimmer on my reverbs or on my harmonies because I don't like them. Well, sometimes I don't like them popping out too much, so I kind of blend them into like this blanket of soft shimmer. And so together with the vocals, it sounds like this.
You're right here. You're right here. You're right here.
So just slightly noticeable at those harmonies. Now, there's also this verb vocals track that we aren't using. I'm going to delete that for now. And those are the harmonies. There's one more little harmony section here, same processing.
When I faced the giants, it wasn't me fighting. Now I see clear that you have always been right here. If you
Oh, and then one more harmony. I forgot. A higher one.
If you were Jesus, when you died for my freedom and opened the kingdom, why wouldn't you be right here?
You can hear the difference in the high end between these two harmonies, or even the harmony in the lead vocal. This harmony really doesn't have that much high end, and that's because there's already a lot of S's going on in the track. There's also a lot of S's going through the sends too, which you can filter off, but I mean, I didn't really feel the need to. I just don't want to add more S's to it. So you could add a de-esser and just make it really clamp down on it. In fact, that's probably what I did around here. Or you can just kind of cut high end and it should blend together nicely without adding S's. But yeah, that's it for our main vocals. Now we go into our group vocals or our chants or whatever you'd call them. These are much more simple. There's pretty much a variation of auto-tune, EQ, and reverb on it. Some of them have some width, like with the Haas effect. It's okay to use the Haas effect to widen stuff up. It messes with the mono, but these are just background vocals and they're not a super crazy part, so you don't really have to worry about it. You can use something like Microshift or ADT, whatever gets your preferred width, but this is what those sound like. We have another set of oohs, same processing, another set of oohs, same processing, another set of oohs, same processing. All of them are pretty much the same processing, as you can see here. All just a variation of auto-tune, EQ, and reverb. Moving on from those, we have some harmonized group vocals. These are a bit different, but really it's similar. It's got EQ, it's got a bit of reamp. This is a great saturation plugin, and it's got some de-essing as well because, you know, you're saying S's in a bunch of group vocals, it's all going to stack up and be a little too sibilancy. And then the individual tracks just have some EQ, and those sound like this.
Why wouldn't you be right here?
These obviously are pushed back in the mix as well. They're not really up forefront, so I don't have to perfect the tuning. I kind of like the collision of the vocals together. I don't want it to sound like Dua Lipa doubles, you know what I mean? Really, the more emotion, the better on a song like this. And then lastly, for the vocals, there's a little chant here. Which actually isn't a chant, it's a percussive thing. Interesting. I wonder how that works in the mix. Works really well. There you go. And lastly, on all the vocals on this entire subgroup, we just have a bit of EQ here. Again, the 200 range being pretty choky. So we cut that. Well, we attenuate it. Next, onto the electric guitars. So first things first, on the subgroup of the electric guitars, we have Saturn for some saturation. Then we have the DC1A3, which is that Klanghelm saturator again. Saturation was pretty important for these guitars. Next, we have Pro MB, which I use pretty much on my subgroups all the time. I'm not sure if I use them in this session. Obviously, I did on some, but maybe not on all. But this just adds a nice bit of control for the guitars. We then have Soothe. It's being sidechained to the acoustic guitar, which we'll get into later. But it's just so the electric and acoustic don't crash in this kind of high mid frequencies. Then we have a little bit of EQ and then a little bit of Soothe to top it off, more around the mids. So that's the bus processing. Let's dive into the independent tracks. For the main kind of rhythmic guitar, it sounds like this. Kind of a bit James Bay-y. We got some shimmer, some EQ, and some compression. This is, I believe, an opto compressor. I'm trying to think. I'm pretty sure. Might be a tube. That's it for the main guitar. Next, we have a secondary guitar. And if you notice the panning, it's not even by any means. There's like a bit over on 12, 12 left, 35 right, 31 right, 26 left. So nothing really even across the stereo field, which is purposeful. I don't know why. I'm just not a fan of like, well, I mean, not that I'm not a fan, but I just much prefer having kind of stuff placed around the stereo field as opposed to just having left and right. Fully wide, fully mono. I think it creates a little more depth. But anyway, for the processing, just some EQ, some saturation, and the Renaissance X. I use this if I want really fast compression that'll add some harmonics to it. It sounds really nice. Put those two guitars together, sound like this. You'll notice the guitars sit a little bit over here. Not fully in the middle, because it's not panned fully left and right. It's just panned a little bit left. We have another guitar, which has the same processing. A little bit different. We have Saturn on this instead. A little bit of Pro Q, a little bit of DC1. Then we've got a bunch of guitars with reverbs on them. I just use a lot of Valhalla Shimmer on this track. This guitar, however, has some Pro Q. That comes in a little bit later. It sounds like this. So much later in the song, much more rhythmic as well. But for the most part, they're very similar. We have some Renaissance, so basically some compression. This one has some limiting. And then we got some EQ, some soothe, and some saturation on this guitar. Yeah. Turn the saturation off. Hear what it does? Just that little bit of breakup. It's awesome. I do love my T-Rex 5 saturator. Then a bit more guitar over here, a little more percussive. This actually doesn't have much processing on it at all, just sending to some delays. We have a few reverby transitions, which the reverb is already baked into these, so I didn't add anything else to it. Same thing with this one. And then we have a guitar pad, which is kind of cool. It's got crystallizer on it. Crystallizer is cool if you want to add a bunch of like high-end weirdness. That's kind of what I use it for. We got some Valhalla Shimmer, some Pro Q, and some Soothe. Let's see what the Soothe is focusing on. Soothe is focusing on around the 2K range. For something like this is super like full frequency, so I have to do a little bit of carving to, yeah, you can see, to make space for a lot more stuff. But let's solo all the guitars and listen to this section. So that is the kind of beginning section, and then we have another section here. And the final chorus. So really great arranging on Braden's part. Next we have acoustic guitars. Very simple. These don't have any processing on them on the individual track because they're pretty much identical. We have a bit of Pro Q. Kind of a crazy curve actually. Bunch of, it's like a mountain range. We have some SPL Vitalizer for that kind of polish, high-end polish, low-end control sort of thing. We have Little Radiator for some color. And then we had Soothe on for the vocals, but we actually didn't use it. So cool, let's listen to that. Really nice guitar sound. We're sending a bit to the room, a bit to the plate. Next, we have some keys. The key bus processing looks like this. It's got some CQ, most likely to boost the high end. Yeah, typically I use CQ to boost high end, and that's it. I don't really touch lows too much. Looks like I attenuated the low end a little bit by 3 dB. Next, we have Little Radiator for some color. When you're looking to get like a bunch of tracks kind of sounding cohesive and stick out in their own frequency spectrums, or in their own frequency ranges, and kind of blend together, saturation is really important. Got some Pro Q, boosting a bit of the lows, cutting a bit of the mids, attenuating them. I always say cut. When I say cut, I mean lowering, just so you know. Then we got a bit of Soothe. Looks like it's sidechained to the vocal lead, which makes sense because keys are pretty full spectrum. Probably going to collide with the vocals quite a bit. Cool. Next up, we have a Rhodes. Rhodes is pretty simple. Just a chorus. I usually use, the Dimension D. Really nice sounding Rhodes. Really nice sounding Rhodes. What if that's like Arturia or something, or maybe it's a real Rhodes? Then we have our synths. We have like a granulated kind of synth. Then we have I'm not sure what the synth is. Let's see. Ooh. Almost like string brass synth. I know it's not, but it sounds a bit like that. And then we have like a pad that goes out through the entire song. I love doing like pedal note pads. I think it fills out stuff really nicely. Importantly, when you do them, you can really only use the root note in the fifth. Otherwise, it kind of collides with a bunch of different chords because you're playing a chord progression, right? So if you have a pad that's playing through the entire song that has notes in it that are not in the chords that you're playing, then they'll collide. So it's nice to use the first and the fifth because those notes are in every chord, except for, I believe, the seventh. Whatever, bunch of theory. There's no processing individually on these tracks. Bit of Pro Q on the synth, I guess, apparently. Yeah, but on the synth bus, there's a bit of Soothe for the vocals. It's turned off, so maybe we weren't using that. Then we have a Pro Q, and then we have some shimmer. Love adding shimmers to synths. Really fills out, again, like a blanket.
A slave with no meaning. Oh,
And that's it. Those are the synths. Pretty simple, really. Now, drums. So we've got some stuff going on in these drums. Let's take a look at this subgroup here. Classic clipper, first of all. Want to clip it all, just in case there's some sharp transients that stick out. After the clipper, we have some EQ. Then we have a spring reverb. This is set to 100% wet, so it's just like a reverb send sort of thing. Sounds like this. Then we got a dry chain. Then we have a room reverb chain, it looks like. Yep. Yeah. Then we have another reverb chain. So if we just go dry, sounds like that. And then adding the rest of the chains in. A lot more spacey, a lot more, I'm going to say this word. It's not a real word, but you should know what it means. Cathedralic. Sounds like a cathedral. Made a new word. Honestly, we should be saying that more often. All right, let's go to the individual drums. We have a thump, which is pretty much a kick. A little bit of saturation. And then we're using the SPL Transient Designer. Probably just, a little bit more attack. Next, we have this, which I think, it looks like it's just a layer with a kick. Yep. In fact, I believe it's the same track. I just put trigger on it. Trigger takes audio input and converts it into a drum. Basically, that's what it does. So any hits will be converted into this sound. So together, just a little more low and a little more punch. Then we have another kick, which sounds like this. A A lot more wide, a lot more saturated. So here's some saturation. We have a transient designer and 𝗕𝗘𝗠𝗕𝗥, which is a plugin I got sent by Nudist Audio, and it's super cool. I'll take it off. You put 𝗕𝗘𝗠𝗕𝗥 on. A lot more punch, a lot more harmonics, obviously, because it's distortion. Sounds great. I use 𝗕𝗘𝗠𝗕𝗥 on bass a lot too. In fact, I think I used it in this mix. Then I added some of Kashmir's acoustic kicks, I believe. Is this a kick? Might not be a kick. No, it's a snare. Cool. Snare with the tremolo. Then we have a hi-hat. We have another hi-hat. Together they'll sound like this. And now all the drums sound like this. And those are the drums. Now for the bass. Doesn't look like I used 𝗕𝗘𝗠𝗕𝗥 on here. Oh, I did. Cool. All right, let's jump into this. The bass sounds like this. Oh, so gnarly. So gnarly. Starts with the radiator just to add some color to the entire signal. Then it splits into 𝗕𝗘𝗠𝗕𝗥, which is super cool. Oh, and without it, see how crazy that is? 𝗕𝗘𝗠𝗕𝗥's cool. Then we have a dry chain to blend in, and then we have 𝗕𝗘𝗠𝗕𝗥. So together, yeah, then it goes through a classic clipper, and then it looks like it's being sidechained to the kick, or one of the kicks that we've got. Then we have electric weirdness. Not sure what this is. No, checks out. Zero processing to it, just a bit of reverb and delay. And then this is actually my favorite part. These strings, very Bon Iver sounding. Just a shimmer because it sounded good when I put it in the DAW. Ooh. Crazy. This is actually one of my favorite parts of the song. Let's listen to it. Super cool. I won't play the full song because it's out. You might as well go listen to it. But lastly, let's just jump into the mastering real quick. Got a bit of Pro C on there. Now remember, there's a lot of clippers on these tracks, so we're not really fighting against transients too much. So we got a Pro C here. Looks like I chose this preset. I never really work with presets, but sometimes I do. And I guess EDM mid-side transient made the most sense for this mix. Then we got some Pro MB. I always put Pro MB on the master. You can see the amount of control, amount of clamping it does on the main mix.
Open the kingdom, why wouldn't you be right here?
I am a huge fan of multi-band compression. Then I used Master Desk, which I never use, but I guess I just wanted to this time. I'm not even fully sure how this works, this plugin. There's a lot to dive into. I haven't learned it completely, but just basic stuff like adding glue. A bit of a clipper, apparently, so that's cool. A bit of XL, a bit of saturation, and a 93% mix on the compression. Then we got some tape. I love T-Rax tape. Everything always sounds good if you put it through T-Rax tape. So, yeah. Let's A-B it.
And open the kingdom, why wouldn't you be right here?
Yeah. A lot more low and a lot more warmth. Really nice. Then we got a limiter.
And open the kingdom, why wouldn't you be right here?
You can see there's not really that many transients poking out. There is, but they're not really jumping out too crazy. That's what the majority of the clipping is doing, is helping. Then we have a loudness meter just to check our LUFS. I like to go for like -9. It's super loud, but I'd rather have my mix turned down than be turned up. I don't want to increase like a noise floor or anything. Plus, the myths that you have to master to a certain LUF it's just annoying. If you master to -14 like Spotify wants you to, or at least like Spotify requests, it has to be turned up for Apple Music. So why not just turn it up and then just make it quieter for Spotify? That's my loudness rant. But yeah, that's everything. This is a super dense, super full mix. tons of fun to work on, and the arrangement's awesome. The parts are really cool. Half the stuff came kind of like pre-mixed, which is cool. So that helped. And yeah, hope you enjoyed. Hope you learned something. If you want to work on some gospel music, feel free to send your project over my way. Ciao.